I'm tired and wore out for a couple of days like that. I haven't heard any really bad ones in the Pfizer.
Yeah. I've got to remember, I'm just mentioning this because I think it'll help, but I've got to remember to text
John, how you
Tanner
doing, man?
Doing well.
when we're getting out of here.
Okay, yeah.
So, on my surveillance camera bill, that's gonna be on the county rules, I think, tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
They had an amendment to it just to change the names of the Caitlin lady.
Mm-hmm.
How does that add it on the floor?
You'll file it as a personal amendment and you'll just introduce it from the well. So I can do one of those sheets like you do for the committee amendments, just on that.
How are you?
Amendment. No, I don't mind at all.
I didn't know if we had to go through a process.
It's just the same thing. I'll bring it up, amendment number 2 or 3, whatever.
We're just naming it after her.
Oh, that's kind of lame. Well, good day and welcome to Education Instruction. As you all know, it's a crazy time of the year. We've got members all over the place, so we'll probably be taking some things out of order. But let's get started. And clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Representative Sapicki, Dixie, Griffey, Harris, Haston, Hicks of Washington, Manis, McKenzie, Parkinson, Reagan, Rudder, Sparks, Warner, White, Vice Chair Lady Weaver, Chair Lady Moody. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to continue the tradition. I would like everybody to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, we're going to get on our calendar today, and our first item up is House Bill 795 by Chairman Howe. You have a motion and a second, and Mr. Howe, you do have an amendment. Is it 6488?
That is correct.
Wonderful. You got a motion and a second. You are recognized on your amendment, Chairman Howe.
Thank you. Amendment makes the bill, and what this does very simply is if the State Textbook Commission does not recommend CTE textbooks or other instructional material in a given school year, the local LEAs will have permission to use those unused funds for technology purposes. And that's the bill.
All right. Well, thank you, Chairman. Members, do you have any comments or questions for the sponsor on the amendment? Second. Bill is added. It's added to the bill. Okay. Now we got to vote. I know. Bear with me, y'all. I'm a little out of rhythm myself. Okay. So all those in favor of putting Amendment 6488 on House Bill 795 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any noes? No noes. All ayes have it. Back on the bill as amended. Does anybody have any questions? Questions been called. All those in favor of sending House Bill 795 as amended to refer to calendar and rules, say aye. Aye. Any noes? All ayes have it. You're headed to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Madam
Chairman
Chair
Howe.
and Committee.
Thank you. Item number 2, House Bill 1513 by Representative Cochran. The motion and a second, and you also have an amendment.
Yes, Chair Lady Weaver, that is correct. 6051 is the amendment we're working with.
You have a motion and a second on the amendment. Well, you guys are rocking and rolling out there. Okay. So we need to take a vote on all those in favor of 6051 amended to House Bill 1513, say aye. Aye. Any noes? Ayes have it. Representative, you are recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you also really for your help on this bill. This is one that you and I work together some on, but it's the Textbook Transparency Act. And it's really just to ensure that all textbooks that are adopted in the state of Tennessee have more eyes on them. Currently, once that textbook is adopted, no one's really clear on where to go see it, where to see that material in full. And so what this bill does is current law requires publishers to make their textbooks available in full, in their full capacity for 90 days. And so there's a 90-day adoption period while textbooks are being considered. What this bill does is if that textbook is adopted by the state of Tennessee, then for the entire lifetime of the adoption, it is available online in its full form. The LEA, if they choose to use that textbook, they put a link on their website. There's a link on the state's website as well. So it's just to ensure that more people can see the textbooks that we're using and can review them. With that, I'll yield to any questions.
Thank you. Very good explanation. Members, do you have any questions for the sponsor? Representative Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. And this is not a question, this is a commendation. We've been fighting this battle now since I've been here, into my third session. So congratulations on being able to get it up to this point, and I hope we get it across the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Representative Sparks, you're recognized.
Yeah. Representative Cochran, just for my own education, I'm new on Education Committee. How come this isn't year round? If we're talking about transparency, how come it just isn't transparent 365 days a year? I'm just curious.
Yes.
Sorry, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Sparks, actually, this will make it transparent for 365. The current law only makes it transparent for 90 days. This new bill would require it year-round and actually for the entire lifetime of the adoption. So for as long as that textbook is being used, it'll be open.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Uh-huh.
Members, are there any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none. Oh, excuse me. Representative Parkinson, you're
Hey,
recognized.
Thanks, Chair Lady. I just want to say thank you for bringing this, man.
Yeah.
Good bill, man. Anytime we can be transparent to the public, it's awesome. Appreciate
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Are y'all ready to vote on this? I don't see any more questions. So all those in favor of House Bill 1513 as amended, go into calendar and rules, signify by saying aye. Any noes? Ayes have it. You're headed to calendar and rules. Good bill,
Yes, we
good
did.
bill,
Yes.
good bill.
Thank you very much. And we put the amendment on, correct, Madam Chair? Is
Yes.
that- Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Now we're going to turn the gavel over to Chair Lady Moody. Welcome.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being patient, and thank you to my vice chair for doing a good job. All right. We are now on number 3, correct? Okay, you have a motion and a second. And I believe the amendment you have is traveling with the bill.
Yes, ma'am. That amendment is 6742.
That is correct.
Okay, gotcha. Do we need to put that on or we're good? Okay, traveling with it.
Yes.
Good deal.
We do. I'm sorry. The folks keeping me straight say we do need to put that amendment on.
Okay.
Motion and seconded. Amendment goes on. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, your amendment goes on. Now you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the amendment makes the bill here. And essentially what this bill does is if there are any substantive changes to how the grading criteria is performed for schools or LEAs, if there's any substantive changes there, the commissioner has to seek approval from the State Board of Education. And even before that occurs, if those performance goals are, if the commissioner is proposing a change, there's a working group that's put together, and it consists of the chair of the Education Administration Committee. There's a member of the Senate, a member of the State Board of Education, a teacher from a rural, urban, and suburban area in the state. And so it makes sure that there's a lot of input before any substantive changes are made to that grading criteria. And with that, I'll yield to any questions.
Thank you for that explanation. And on our list, we're keeping a list here. So Chairman Sapicki, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Just to be clear, the amendment that we had, adding those 3 teachers of urban, suburban, and rural, it is incorporated in the amendment. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. That's
mhm.
all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next on our list, Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good to see you this morning, and the young Eddie Smith also next to you. Sponsor, under this bill, two things. One, give me an example of a grading change that you see,
Right.
envision rather.
And so, I mean, and unfortunately, obviously, we could ask the department kind of what some of those, but like if anything is substantive, like as far as like how a school receives that A, B, C, because that's kind of our current new system. But if they make any substantive changes to how those criteria are put together, or if they put in a new criteria, and I apologize, I don't have one right off the top of my head, but if it's anything big, that has to have some input and then overall approval by the State Board of Education.
Okay, and no, you're fine. I guess, and I'm just trying to see if this is what I saw before. One year, the Achievement School District changed what was once an F to become a D, and and so on and so forth. And and it looked like the children were doing better when in essence they really weren't. And so, is this what we're talking about, though?
That is what we would be talking about. If you are changing how you calculate performance goals, that has to be approved by the State Board of Education.
I love it, man. Great bill, man.
Thank you.
You rolling this morning.
I appreciate that.
All right, I want to sign on actually. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I see no one else on the list. So it's been called. All in favor of House Bill, excuse me, I swallowed wrong. House Bill 1570, say aye. Any opposed? You pass on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chair, Lady, and Committee.
Thank you. I have Representative Hicks, if you don't mind, I was handed a note, and please excuse me for just letting you know that we will go out of order to take up Bill number 9, and then we'll take you up right after. Thank you for your indulgence. On your calendar, House Bill 9. I'm strangling. Chair. I've lost my voice. Pardon me.
Sorry, it's taking me a while.
That'll give me time. My microphone won't stay on. Thank you. Chair Lady Weaver, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee members. House Bill 1535 deals with a largely overlooked and unregulated segment of classroom instruction supplemental materials. Currently, our state law is clear that only textbooks that have been reviewed by the Textbook Commission, found to be aligned with the Tennessee state standards, and approved by the state board can be used in Tennessee classrooms. But the law is silent on supplemental materials. House Bill 1535 does 4 important things. 1, it classifies supplementals as those materials used to support approved textbooks in core subjects. This is a distinction that we see in other states as well. 2, it clarifies that you cannot use supplemental instead of approved textbooks. 3, it stipulates that supplementals cannot be identified as Common Core, meaning that we will be consistent across all main classroom materials with our textbooks and supplementals. And 4, it gives the responsibility for the review and approval of supplemental materials to our local officials, our local LEAs. And as you can see at the end of section 1, those local officials will identify the materials they have reviewed and approved, taking the guesswork out of a teacher's decision and ensure a process for parents to register concerns over supplementals being considered. Finally, we've added some teeth to the bill that we've added to other content bills this year as well, namely that the commissioner can withhold some level of funding if a district knowingly and intentionally violates these provisions. This committee, I've always said, this is the workhorse committee of all the committees here down at the General Assembly. We ferret through and we go through a lot of stuff. And the main thing we do here on both sides of the aisles is we believe in our teachers, and we definitely believe in our students, and we're on gear and a path to be number one. And that's what we're trying to do. I've gotten some emails from people, and I'm sure you have too, and I believe there's a big misunderstanding on what this intent and the spirit of this bill is. Number one, we are all concerned about content before our children. And so that is first and foremost. Secondly, is we're not here to penalize or handcuff our teachers to be creative. A lot of times there's stuff out there that they want to use, and they should be able to use to enhance their topic of discussion or how they're doing things. However, it has to line up with what the Tennessee state standards are. We've spent years as a committee making sure that we keep between the lanes, and we do not get out of those lanes. That's very important. And we've worked very, very hard on that. We worked hard to acknowledge the fact that Common Core, even though we passed legislation in 2015 that we did not approve of this, we worked hard to make sure that we're not using it. And so we're asking, we always believe that a policy works best closest to the home. We're allowing our LEAs to have a process to put together. Some counties, one of which I represent, and Bradley County, they already do this process. And I think they handle it very well. They're very creative. They have a process. If a teacher wants to use some, you take it to the principal. This is cool. Go for it. You can use it. It just keeps everybody in between the lanes. And we have got to close the hole on stuff out there that is not good. And parents need to know what their child is reading and looking at in that classroom. For one, I have 2 grandchildren in Davidson County. I want to know what they're reading in high school and in middle school. And parents want to know. And out in Smith County, or DeKalb County, grandparents want to know what little Johnny's reading in 7th grade. And it should be easy for them to be able to do that. This allows them to do that. Already we have a textbook depository place, like a library where you can go. We've established that already. We had the Representative Cochran before us, and we're putting sunlight and eyeballs on what the textbooks are teaching. Supplemental materials is a huge part that has to have eyes on it too, y'all, because the internet is just so easily accessible. There's all kinds of stuff out there. So all we're asking is to, let's put our eyeballs on it. If you're aligned to the Tennessee standards, this bill will not affect you. But it keeps everybody honest, it keeps everybody in the lanes. It allows our local LEAs to figure out the process and how they want to do it. And to me, that's the best process. The original bill called for the state school board to do it. Well, that wasn't very practical at all. So we amended it to let the LEAs handle their camp. And it is no intention of this bill is to handcuff teachers and not allow them to use supplemental materials. It just asks you to please stay within the lanes, and let's be transparent of what is coming before our children. And that is basically the explanation of the amendment. And I'll take any questions.
All right, members, yes. We need to add the amendment to the bill. Chair Lady Weaver, will you confirm the number of that amendment for us?
I'd be happy to. Let me find it just to say, yeah, that amendment is 5389.
Correct. Yeah. All right, your amendment has been motioned and seconded. We need to vote to adopt. All right, we need to vote. Thank you. We need to vote to adopt the amendment on the bill. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, amendment goes on the bill. Oh, Representative Sapicki, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In working with the sponsor here, I'm assuming this is going to be a friendly verbal amendment. It's non-substantive. We thought with the implementation date on the last page of being July 1st, 2021 would really put the LEAs at a disadvantage of trying to get this database collected. And so what I'd like to do is add an amendment, a verbal amendment that changes it from July 1st, 2021 to July 1st, 2022, that gives the LEAs an extra year to prepare for this. And that's the amendment. It's all just a verbal amendment.
All right, the verbal amendment has been motioned and seconded.
Second.
We have a motion and amendment to adopt it, and it's been seconded. So we're voting to add the verbal amendment on. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, your verbal amendment goes on to the bill.
Question on the bill. Oh, I'm sorry.
Legal.
I'll withdraw.
Legal may,
sorry.
you add those into one, please. Thank you. All right, what did
Sorry,
I
Doug.
just miss? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Members, may I make this request? Well, we do have someone that wanted to testify. So may we go to that, I believe the name is Will French. Are you here? Thank you. Come forward. And we need you to state your name and make sure your microphone is on so we can hear you. There's a button.
Now,
That's perfect.
great.
And may I remind you, you have 3 minutes. And for our, just for the information for anyone that we have testifying, you are not allowed to have props.
Sure.
But we certainly want to hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
out of session. I'm
sorry.
sorry. We're out of session to hear this testimony. All right, now, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity to submit testimony against HB 1535. My name is Will French, and I'm a resident and educator in Nashville. I have played a lot of different roles in education for the past 12 years, most recently as a school counselor. Like the majority of Tennessee educators, I have earned a graduate degree in my specialty. I am also a credentialed, nationally certified counselor. I know that this bill will weaken education in Tennessee. HB 1535 invalidates the training and years of experience my colleagues and I have undertaken, and it stifles our creativity in teaching Tennessee state standards while being responsive to our students' needs in the classroom. The bill also lays down more red tape and regulations that will make it harder for educators to do their jobs. HB 1535 would require every printed or electronic instructional resource that students can access in Tennessee public schools to be reviewed and approved by the school board or charter school governing board. The bill covers every material a student could possibly learn from at school, including all the books in the school library and all the content on computer databases. The bill also applies to any worksheet a teacher may create to make a lesson more relevant for her learners. I know that being the most effective, responsive school counselor I can be means addressing the changing needs of my students and my school, needs that are usually changing daily. However, HB 1535 would make it impossible for me to be responsive or innovative in my counseling program. By the time my print or electronic resources get approved, my lesson and activities may no longer be responsive, and my students will have suffered for it. Schools and school districts are already meeting the incredible needs and demands of their students, and families, which have only been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Adding the additional responsibility of reviewing and approving materials without additional funding forces educators, administrators, and district leaders to sacrifice other responsibilities to meet these requirements. Each school has its own unique needs and challenges. This bill acts as an unfunded mandate that will only add more bureaucracy to the educational process anytime my fellow educators and I find materials that will help us do the job that we were hired to do, to teach and care for our students. Educators should be trusted as the trained and experienced professionals and experts that we are. As such, I ask you to vote no on HB 1535. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and we thank you for what you do
Thank you.
teaching. It's an honorable profession, and appreciate you taking the time to come.
Thank you.
Now, I have a question. We had a list going, but I want to confirm that the representatives that wanted to speak now to our testimony or after? Okay. All right. Now I will ask, do any members have a question of our guest? And I see Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Chair Lady Moody. Thank you for being here. But I do have a question for you.
Sure.
You have strongly implied with your comments that the parents do not have a right to know. I certainly will concede to you that the educators you've talked about are professionals and are entitled to exercise judgment. My daughter's a teacher, so I certainly would not disagree with that. But this bill is aimed at letting parents know what's going on in front of their children. Your statements imply that teachers have the right to do this without the parents knowing. Is that what you're intending?
That's
Mr.
certainly-
French.
Oops, sorry.
Mr. You're recognized.
Thank you. I certainly don't mean to imply that. One of the things that I do in my role as a school counselor is that I implement needs assessments every single year. And so those are needs assessments that go out to the whole school community so that all different stakeholders, including families, can have some input on what they see as some of the needs of their own students at our school. And so we use that with all the different stakeholders, students, families, my colleagues, teachers, and administrators in the school to determine what my programming will look like that year. But then certainly other things may just sort of happen, things that I can't necessarily plan for, like natural disasters or things like that, where I just need to be ready to respond as quickly as possible to meet our students and families' needs. So, but I do in my work consult with families.
Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Chair Lady. This is a follow-up. I'm not going to quarrel with natural disasters and pandemics as far as being extraordinary circumstances. This bill is not aimed at natural disasters and those kinds of extraordinary circumstances. Rather, it's aimed at the routine wherein teachers use supplemental material put in front of class without the parents being able to have an opportunity to see it until after it's presented. As a parent of former public school students, as well as a grandparent of those currently in it, I'm concerned about what goes in front of those students. And I will tell you, as a former chair of the K through 12 subcommittee last session, I got complaints from across the state about some of the material, and they were sending to copies of it. Quite frankly, the complaints were grounded. So this bill is obviously aimed at putting some judgment in there from the parents. Are you saying that they shouldn't have that at all? It seems to me from your comments, that's what you're saying.
Well, the way that I read and understand the bill is that any materials that we may want to use have to be approved first. And I don't understand in the current writing of the bill how my responsibility to respond in the moment to my students' very naturally traumatic responses to any sort of event, natural disasters, it puts constraints on those moments as well, that I would have to get any sort of materials approved. And so no, I still don't mean to imply that parents or families can't have some knowledge or awareness of what's going on in the school buildings. And I think it's at the same time a delicate balance to, in the current writing of this bill, figure out how can teachers and educators still responsibly and effectively do their jobs.
Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, thank you for your explanation there. But it seems to me, sir, that the parents of these children, who are the first educators, should have every right to know what they're being exposed to in the schoolroom. I understand the burden that you're talking about for those having to do the research and get approval, but we have the same kind of criteria for our textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
Textbooks must come before a commission to be approved, and I fail to see how this requirement, which by the way, can build up over time. A school district can build a database of approved material which teachers can go to and pull from and submit to it as they choose for later times, and parents could have access to that. So I'm at a loss to understand how this is creating an undue burden with that situation going. Can you expand on that, please?
Sure.
You may respond.
Thank you. So I think a couple of things. One, if and when, I'm preparing a lesson or any activities with my students, I have no way of knowing that my materials can be approved in a timely manner for me to be allowed to use those materials in my instruction with my students. And because, as I said in my testimony, we're, as educators already in all of our different roles across the district, we are already doing so much. And so inevitably something else will be sacrificed in the process of us meeting this mandate. And particularly if it continues to be unfunded. And the other, and so then there could be a backlog of 2 weeks or even longer, who knows, of whoever has been designated the role of approving these materials. If they don't get to my materials in time, then that makes my instruction no longer responsive or effective necessarily for my students. The other aspect that I think about too is that, as educators, if there's, and I'll just speak from my experience in my own building, if there are ever times that we're not sure that something is appropriate to teach to our students, we still consult with our administrators, whether it's our associate principal or our principal, to make sure that there's a discussion around the materials. Is it the most effective kind of material to use with our students, and is it responsible to use this material with our students? So, we are trained professionals, and we are professionals by our nature. And I think, if there are individual teachers who are not necessarily being professional in their engagement with their students, then that's a conversation for that educator to have with their administrator or with their school district. But what this bill would end up doing is creating this burdensome process for all educators because of a few who are creating a not necessarily effective learning environment.
Right. Any other questions for our guest? Right. Seeing none. Thank you so much again for being here and testifying.
Thank you so much.
And we are going back into session. First on my list for being back in session is Chairman Dixie.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Representative Reaver, I just had a couple questions for you. You referenced a school in your district. Can you explain how the approval process works, and how long does it take, and how long does a parent have to make comments based on this material that's in question?
Chair Lady Weaver.
This is 3 questions.
It's 2 or 3.
3.
Okay, so your first question is, I'm sorry, Chairman.
Can you explain
Yes.
the process of how it works in that school district that you referenced?
Surely. The process is not meant to be clumsy at all. Again, I trust my LEAs, your LEAs. I trust them to know how to do this. A lot of them, like I said earlier, are already doing this. So basically, if when you're going to use, first of all, the teacher knows if this is aligned to state standards. And if you have a question, you take it to your principal usually, or a designee, somebody who the LEAs had appointed, to just put some eyeballs on it and look at it. In most cases where I have heard, an example I was given in my district was and of course, then the teacher goes ahead and uses the supplemental. But in some cases, if there's an added reading book or a novel or something, and a parent takes it home, and lots of parents read with their children when they bring those books home, as they should, and they have a problem with a book, well, there's an appeal process for the parent. Go to the school, like we always do with any other incident with our children at the school, and there is a process there. There's no harm done for the kids. There'll still be an instructional. Maybe there'll be another book. Maybe there'll be another worksheet. They work it out. I just want to let the LEAs handle it. I don't want to get micromanaging here and just let them handle it. And they do a very good job. So that's the process, if that answered your question.
Well, I guess the time frame of something, it would take a week, 2 days. I guess I was just wondering what the time frame. So if I'm a parent and I object to something that's being taught to my child, and so I'll call the school, I'll call the principal and say, I have an issue. Then I guess we'll have a meeting, and I'm assuming that's the appeals process that you're talking about. And I was just wondering, do you have any idea how long this would take? I was just curious.
I've never heard it where it takes weeks. I mean, it's just they just deal with it, and they move on. So I've never heard of a clumsy situation at all. Again, I believe our LEAs can do this quite efficiently. Again, and parents are in control here, not the state, not departments, parents. Scripture says, train your child in the way they should go. And so the parents are the ones who are the buffer zone of what their children are reading.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Chair Lady.
Thank you. All right, Chairman, are you finished? I'm sorry, I thought you had, okay. All right, next on our list is Representative Warner.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Representative Weaver, can you just maybe a point of clarification here? Is it my understanding that teachers can still use supplemental material as long as it falls under the Tennessee standards? Is that correct?
Chair Lady.
Bingo. Correct.
Okay, great. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list, I have Representative Manis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Weaver, I just have a couple of questions that have been shared with me from Knox County. And one is back to, I think the speaker's topic. Teaching current events, how will we teach current events? And I'm the brother of a Knox County teacher as well. So how will those things, because I've heard that it could take as long as 2 weeks for review in the LEA. How will we teach current events if that is the case? And the example I was given was 911. How, if 911 happened, how would they teach that current event with a process that would take 2 to 3 weeks for review by the LEA?
Chair Lady. Well, again, we still want to know what our kids are reading. We still want to know what's before them. But a lot of that, a lot of 9/11 in the example you gave, Representative, it's been taught already. It's 18, 19 years of stuff's being taught on current events. So there's already been approval. There's already guidelines of what has been approved. This bill also will do that, like say if a teacher finds something and of course she gets approval, the link will be available to be put on the website of the local school. So there's a place to go there to find out what's been approved. But a good teacher can take current events, and she or he can apply it that where it aligns with our standards. And they're all through our great state of Tennessee.
Representative Manis, did you?
9/11, thank you, Madam Chair. 9/11 was just an example. I'm not sure how they're going to take current events and then roll them within the current guidelines. I'm not sure I understand that, but I will move on and talk about just one of the things I heard yesterday was, and we've said it today, we believe in our teachers, but this appears like we are not trusting our teachers. So can you just give me a response to my educators?
Yes, Chair Lady.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Representative, in response to your question, yes, I do trust our teachers. As a parent or a grandparent, I trust those teachers to teach my children to read, write, and do math, and to succeed and to do well. This in no way implies that I don't trust them. We are already doing this with textbooks, to approve textbooks. You can't teach something that's outside of the lane. This is the same intent and the same spirit with supplemental materials. I know we live in a digital world where everything is at the click of a mouse or, your phone, Google something, and things are easily to access. I'm not at all saying that this bill implies that I don't trust our teachers. We have amazing teachers. We ask them to do amazing things, but also teachers, regardless of the steps that we place them through to do things, they have an amazing accountability because they have our children for 8 hours in a classroom, and they're developing citizens and leaders for tomorrow. And that's in itself is a huge responsibility. So the majority of people, we trust our teachers. They go through evaluations, they go through testing, they go through all these steps to prove that they can do this. And so this bill actually helps them and protects them from, getting outside the lane. As long as they do our standards and our alignments, they're cool.
Yes, Representative Manis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just help me understand, I was looking at the fiscal note as well. Is this an unfunded mandate for the extra hours that will be for the review of the material? Or is the state going to fund additional positions in the LEAs?
Yeah. Am I right? Thank you. Yeah. They already have a lot of this stuff in place and in motion to do. Again, I don't want to micromanage the LEAs. I want them to be able to figure out their own process. Many of them are already doing this. So again, it's an accountability. We want to know what's in front of our kids, and I know that they can make an easy. They already got the nuts and bolts together to do this.
Yes. Can this be the last one? We got more on the list though, but yes.
I heard they have the capacity, and I'm not sure that Knox County would agree with the fact that they have the capacity to add the review of this additional supplemental material. So I just want to make sure that I understand what you're saying. So you're saying the LEAs currently have the capacity, all of the LEAs have the capacity to absorb this additional workload?
Chair Lady.
Well, first of all, we have extended and given them over a year to kind of put the process in place. That's what the amendment was for. So July 1, 2022. And there are counties already doing this. There are models out there to look at, large counties, not just small ones like in my rural area, but there's large counties, like Bradley County is a great example. They're already doing this. Teachers work together with their administrators. They work together with their principals, their school board. So they already have a team of folk that can do this. So yes, I believe they can.
I believe that they will, just as we've asked to with our textbook. And I think all those components together, we can make this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Weaver.
Thank you. Next on the list is Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to kind of dovetail on what the representative from Knox County has stated, and he's right in that we've been inundated with emails coming from our constituents about this, and from my research, I don't think Knox County has the capacity nor is planning. You said you give it a year, they're not planning. I mean, they pretty much have full-time, employees. They're not planning the capacity within the current budget. So that is what my research yielded. But question as to what another representative has said, in that as long as it complies with the state standards, it can be taught. My question is back to that current event message. We had a controversial election and a resulting insurrection. Can current event materials be taught on that, presented, discussed with capable and able high school students within a day or two, as long as the material meets the state standards?
Chair Lady.
Is that your question, Representative?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, current events are discussed in the district already, and at their levels, and they're being done currently. So this should not prohibit that.
Excuse me. Yes, Representative McKenzie.
Thank you. So, I guess that's kind of my point. It looks like, things are going well within our school systems, and we've hired the best and the brightest. And I guess my question with that would be then, why would the supplemental materials in that same example, that material has not been approved by the state board, as it says here. This is a current event material that's not approved by the state board, but it meets the guidelines. I guess I'll ask again, that piece of paper that meets the state guidelines but has not been approved, how can that material be presented in a classroom setting within a day of an event like the insurrection?
Chair Lady.
Again, it's current events, and each local district teaches them as they see fit, and it matches the standards. And again, wonderful teachers know how to teach current events that match our standards. I'm not a teacher. I taught homeschool. But I taught, and I had to be creative, and so teachers do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, on my list now, I have Chairman Sapiki. Question's been called and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. We will now be voting on the bill. Okay. Okay, so now we're voting on the bill. Okay. Question, and I misspoke. And I need the audience to not speak out, please, or you will be removed. We will now vote on the bill. All in favor, say aye. Yes. Our previous question, I misspoke. We'd already put the amendments on the bill, and I asked legal to roll them into one, which they've done. So now I was at the question was called to vote on the bill. So that's what I misspoke. So the previous question has been called. So we are now voting on the bill. All right, then that goes on to calendar and rules. All right, Representative Hicks, excuse me. We will now take up number 4 on the calendar, House Bill 1446. You have a motion and a second. You are recognized. I don't see an amendment with this, so you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee. This bill requires the Department of Education to introduce career exploration opportunities to middle school students. The legislation also requires LEAs to advise middle school students about available CTE courses offered by their LEAs that may align the students with the career aptitude assessment results. Introducing CTE programs in middle school provides a strong foundation for success for future work. Research shows that students that concentrate in a CTE area in high school are more likely to be employed and have higher earnings than students who did not pursue a CTE program. Aptitude-based guidance aligns students' true talents with their best fit pathways and has proven to increase school engagement, graduation rates, and post-secondary success. House Bill 1446 also improves gender, racial, and rural equity and diversity. With that, on a personal note, when I was growing up at the age of about 12, my father on a weekly basis would tell me, if you'll learn a trade, you'll always have a job. So whenever I started, into 7th and 8th grade, I began to work and I took the trades in schools. And at the age of 25 years old, I built my own house with my own hands. And that's so important moving forward in the education system, I think. So, we have a lot of controversy in middle schools anymore. I think this is a positive approach to middle school. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you for that explanation. And on our list, I have Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. This is key, and you're right. It's not urban, it's not suburban, it's not rural. We're going to always need folks that know how to pull wire.
Right.
We're going to need folks that know how to build things and run these great AC systems that we have in the building like this, and getting folks, I won't say track, but getting folks excited about it, and testing that aptitude and at this level, I think is a wise thing to do. And more and more, as we push the STEM, and I'm a STEM person, it's great, but we also we have to have some hands that skilled hands that can implement these things. So again, thank you for bringing this bill out. I'm going to sign on it myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I see Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to carefully echo the sentiments of my colleague from Knox County. I don't want to get too excited about your bill and then it turn the Republican members away from your bill, because it's a great bill, though. Seriously, it's a really good bill. I appreciate you bringing this. Appreciate what your dad taught you also. And I teach my daughter the same thing, but just a little bit differently. I tell her, to get a trade and get it early while she's in school, so that she can provide the jobs. not get a job. I prefer that she didn't work for anyone but herself, and and be a job provider, because we know that's the difference between the ruling class and the service class. And so, but thank you again, putting them on the right path, starting them early. I want to sign on also if it won't harm your bill.
Mhm.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Representative Sparks.
Representative Hicks, I just want to thank you for this, and just share that you made a good impression on me. I probably made a bad impression on you when I met you at Pickwick. If you remember, I was bragging on your opponent that you had just beat. I really liked your opponent, and I said to myself, man, I bet that guy hates me now. But I did like your opponent. But I do like you, and I like your passion. I do like your passion, and you share with me how you really wanted to go after help the youth and addiction and treatment. And I think I share with you where there's no lobbyist up here for a lot of these issues, no liaisons. And I appreciate you stepping up, being that lobbyist, being that liaison, being that advocate. To the school counselor in the audience, I appreciate his efforts. And we got to reach these young people. My dad was World War II. I bought my first house at 22. I didn't build it though, so it's a lot more impressive to see you build it. I didn't build it, but that opportunity really doesn't exist. Maybe in a rural area or something, but in an urban area like Rutherford County, you can't even afford a home today. It's sad where things are going, but we've got that new TCAT in my district on Freddie Hahn Way. My coworker got killed in Iraq. His boy was with me the other day. His boy's 18, doesn't really know what he wants to do, but I think he's going to go to that TCAT, which is named, that road is named in honor of his late father. So thank you for your passion, and I expect more bills like this next year, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Manis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me see if I can get this pulled back around from Representative Sparks. Representative Hicks, I also, this is a great piece of legislation. When I read this, I was excited. I have spoken to many high school classes that come through our facility, and it's amazing how lots of kids, if they're not on a path to going on to college, in the past, they haven't felt like they had a direction. And I think helping our kids understand that there is a direction, not everyone is college bound. And personally, I myself, I do not have a college degree. I'm from the School of Hard Knocks. So I think it's important that in the 7th and 8th grade that we make sure that they understand if they are not college bound, that their life is not over and there's another path for them. So I can't thank you enough for bringing this legislation to us.
Thank you. And I have no other representatives on the list, so question's been called. All in favor of passing House Bill, oh boy, I lost the number, 1446 on to calendar and rules, say aye. Any opposed? Bill passes. Next on our calendar is number 5, House Bill 0800, Representative Griffey. You have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Madam Chair, lady, members of the committee. I would respectfully request a roll call vote on this legislation, please. There's no amendments on it, and I wanted to let the committee know this bill is not moved in the Senate yet. Senator Nice and I miscommunicated. So my intent is if it passes out of here, I'll park it in calendar and rules until next calendar year when the Senate has a chance to pick it up and go from that. What Bill 800 does, it tries to limit sex education, sexual issues to only issues that involve teen pregnancy prevention, abstinence, and sexual disease prevention transmission. I feel that most parents feel that the missions of our school is to educate our kids, and it tries to avoid controversial subjects, and it tries to avoid promoting one belief system over another belief system. So that's what the bill does, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that explanation. And members, I wanted to let you know that we have someone that requested properly to testify. So is it the will of the committee to let that come forward first, and then I'll take our questions? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we will go out of session. And I have Julie, I hope I'm saying it right, Bisgard. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If you'll come forward and And again, I'll let you state your name for the record and be sure your mic's on. And 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Better?
That's good.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for having me here. My name is Julie Biscard, that's with a B, and I'm here to oppose HB 0800. My name is Julie Biscard. I live in Clarksville, Tennessee with my husband. I have a degree in special ed, elementary ed, and a master's degree in curriculum instruction with a certification to teach gifted. I've just retired from teaching after 30 years in military communities, and I can say I truly loved being in military communities because of the diversity. I also volunteer now with GLSEN, a national organization that works to build safe and inclusive schools, particularly for our LGBT students. GLSEN research shows that a school with inclusive curriculum is a leading indicator of a school that experiences less bullying overall. I want to tell you of an incident in my early teaching career. Then it was common to have monthly topics. So we would have Native American History, Black History Month, Women's History Month, and one day in May, Cinco de Mayo. So imagine my surprise when a shy Asian Pacific girl came up and said, "Where's my day?" And we didn't have it. So we went down to the library to do some research because she was looking for a role model. This bill is discriminating against our LGBT students and attempting to remove LGBT individuals, students that need role models. As teachers, we can't overlook any of our students, even if those students don't reflect our own background or even if we don't understand. When we include the complete stories in our curriculum, we learn about Sally Ride, the first American woman in space, who was a very private woman, never revealed that she had pancreatic cancer, and never revealed that she had a partner for 27 years. We learn about Bayard Rustin, who had to hide his gayness because of the time period, and he was the chief organizer for Martin Luther King's 1963 march. We learn about Alan Turing, who because of the time was treated horrifically because of his gayness, yet it was his code-breaking research that helped lead to the Allied victory and saved thousands of lives. We can learn from these incidents. We can learn from uncomfortable moments like the Stonewall riots or the Lavender Scare. These accounts do not promote inappropriate lifestyles. These accounts are all woven into our rich American history. Reading a book, whether it's historical or fictional, with a person like yourself is like a mirror where you will see a reflection of yourself looking back. When you read about a person different from yourself, it's like looking out a window and you can learn about the classmates about you or about the world around you. Not only is this inclusion important for our students, but also for the gay couple coming in for a parent-teacher conference or our LGBT colleague that teaches down the hall. Including
I'm sorry. We're at our 3-minute limit and we do have other bills and all. I'm sorry. We have to limit. Do you have one wrap-up sentence for us?
I will say that there are 3 library associations that have written opposing this bill, and cases have gone to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled in 1982 saying books couldn't be removed simply because the ideas within are disliked.
Thank you, and I apologize for the interruption, but thank you for wrapping it up for us. Members, while we're at a session, does anyone have any questions for our guest? Well, all right then. Well, thank you for being here again, and thank you for your 30 years of teaching. We appreciate that. All right, members, we'll go back in session. On my list, I have Representative Harris. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairwoman. So sponsor, I'm obviously I'm going to be voting no on this bill. So go ahead and mark me down as a roll call for that. But I do want to make a couple statements as to this bill. By doing this initially, by putting this type of language in to be a part of this, rights certain people, certain members in this body from being in the history that they read, that the kids are taught. As a member of this body, this would eliminate me and actually one other member on this committee from being even mentioned in our textbooks, from even being thought about in our textbooks, from kids who want to come up in politics and are scared to do so, from being inside of the textbooks, from being taught, being mentioned. You eliminate all of our background, and just to take out that part of who we may be. You do that with this legislation. I don't know what your premise or purpose is for that. Going back to something that Representative Weaver mentioned earlier on her bill, if the teachers, she's not trying to tie the hands of the teachers with her bill, but this ties the hands of the teachers, the knowledge of the students, the LEAs altogether, everyone, from being able to even get any type of information about those who you may disagree with. By reading this language, there's a lot of whereas statements, and those whereas statements are opinions. A lot of our bills that we put up here usually have some type of merit in fact but behind them. And so this bill here specifically, I'll read one of them, where it says, whereas the promotion of LGBT issues and lifestyles in public schools offends a significant portion of students, parents, and Tennessee residents with Christian values. I'm a Christian. And I don't know, I didn't get one email in support of this bill, but I got 672 emails. And if you want them, I can give them to you from people, some in your district, actually. Jennifer, Marcy, Hannah, Jenna, Eva, all from your district, who were against this bill. You have people, opinions are, they're just what they are, opinions. You have people like George Washington, who did some things, but we still teach about him. You had Martin Luther King. I love Martin Luther King, but he did some things. We still teach about him. You have Robin Roberts. I wake up every morning to hear "Good Morning, America" from somebody who is a member of LGBT community, a journalist. Kids want to go to school to be journalists, and to see a bill like this where she can't even be taught about, for young women who are in fear for certain things to even be able to, want to go do this. I just think that we should be a little bit more thoughtful before we do this type of legislation. And we already have a rap on this side where people say that, well, the senators take a little bit more time and are a little bit more thorough than we are. And that shouldn't be the case on this side. We should be more thorough with legislation like this. I'm really, really glad that you asked for a roll call vote, because I would love to see who feels like we should be able to take all of this out, where the LEA shouldn't even be able to have the opportunity to even think about this, where the Textbook Commission, who we sit here and put so much trust in. I mean, we have put a lot of trust into our Textbook Commission. And so I think that to allow them to be able to do this, if it's currently in our standards right now, I didn't even look to see what the fiscal note would be on this, but that would mean we would have to take a lot of textbooks out. I disagree with this bill completely. And that is it. Thank you so much.
Representative Griffey.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair Lady, and thank you very much for Representative from Memphis regarding your comments. This bill is not designed to unfairly target anybody. What it's trying to do is set up some balance and fairness. Right now, my Christian beliefs, values cannot be taught in our public schools. Many people feel that we're in a culture war, and that the LGBTQ, it's a social battle that we're engaging in. And the social LGBTQ agenda is a belief system, and some people refer to it as secular humanism. Our Supreme Court has recognized that secular humanism is a belief system and not entitled to any special treatment that Christianity belief systems or other Muslims or whatever belief systems are. And we simply don't allow those in our public school systems. So what this bill is trying to do is strike some balance and fairness so that one side doesn't get to promote their values and the other side is not allowed to promote theirs either. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Representative Harris, we're running close to time, so I'll let you speak,
Great.
but thank you.
Thank you. And not to take away from that at all, but you eliminate a whole section. There's nowhere that eliminates that we even talk about Christian values. I'm not eliminating Christian values. I would love if you want to write a piece of legislation in support of that, I got you. But this right here eliminates it altogether. If we go back to looking at what Christian values in, we look at just the 10 Commandments alone, we teach about Greek gods in our history, and in the Constitution, the commandments say, "I'm the Lord thy God." You shouldn't be teaching about that. We teach about it anyway. We teach about famous musicians and how they are idled, but no graven images or likenesses should be taught about, and things like that. And you're completely negating all of that with this bill. I don't want to be too long, but I would much rather this be something that we even talk about in summer study than for it to actually be something we pass this through, because this is horrible legislation.
Representative
Horrible.
Griffin.
If I have some pages of the Bible that I would like to have and taught in school regarding the relationship between man and woman and whatever, that would be banned. We couldn't teach that in our public schools. But at the same time, under current law, books promoting bisexual and gays and transgenders are allowed to be taught and promoted in schools. So what this bill is trying to do is strike fairness so that we take these controversial issues outside of the school. There's nothing that prevents our children from learning about them, reading about them. It just shouldn't be a part of our state school curriculum that government teaches our kids.
Well, it removes 2 representatives from that. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Just a minute. Thank you. Representative McManus, pardon me, Representative Manus. And if I can remind, we have at least one more quickly looking on our list. So I'm going to ask the remainder comments, keep that time frame in mind, please. But thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. In the, as I look through the legislation, in the third whereas paragraph, it says promote, normalize, support, or address controversial social issues. Is it issues or is it issue, singular? Because it says issues, but then the example is given LGBT lifestyles are inappropriate. Where inappropriate is subjective. I'm not sure, maybe not acceptable by some, but does leaving the word issues, does it mean that we might even be able to not talk about interracial marriages? I mean, I'm trying to see how deep this is. And then secondly, some of the things that I've gotten from the educators in Knox County is there's a large percentage of LGBT educators. Do you want to eliminate them as well?
Pardon me. Yes, Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lane. Thank you to the representative from Knoxville. No, this doesn't eliminate anybody. This simply addresses what curriculum standards are going to be and are allowed to be taught in our schools. And I believe it's 1980, maybe 92, the Tennessee passed a constitutional amendment. 86% of Tennesseans voted in favor of it that said marriage should be between a man and a woman. And that passed. So I think this is in alignment with the majority of what Tennesseans feel like. Just it's these issues should be left, the controversial issues should be left out of our schools, and they can be worked out in the public. I don't think it's the job of government to be instructing our schools on controversial issues. I have 2 daughters. I'd prefer to teach my daughters about sex, transgender, bisexuals, any of that stuff at home and not have our government do it. Because quite frankly, I'm not sure I trust our government to be the judge of what's appropriate for my children. I'd rather have that at home. And I think most parents would like to reserve those controversial subjects for a home discussion. So.
Thank you. Yes, quickly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the example you just gave, Representative Griffey, and I'm not being combative at all, I'm just trying to understand in all due respect. But the example you just gave with the marriage between a man and a woman, it would appear that this is in response or retaliation to that. Is that true, or?
Representative Griffey.
No, it's simply to strike a balance that my Christian belief systems, my value systems are not allowed to be taught in public schools. There's a belief system that adopts the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender lifestyle. That's a belief system. They're currently allowed to promote that in schools. And I'm simply trying to strike a balance. And I think those controversial subjects are best left at home for mom and daddy to discuss with their children about.
Thank you. All right. On our list, Representative Rutter.
to me, this is just another example of something that divides us. Representative Griffey, I think that House Bill 800 is not necessary because didn't we just pass House Bill 1570? That speaks to Tennessee standards. Am I wrong to say that these topics would not be aligned with Tennessee standards? So what is the purpose of your bill?
Representative Griffey.
Well, this would say that the Tennessee standards cannot include this as part of the standards because I'm trying to take out the sex education part that's not, that does not address abstinence, sexual disease transmission, or pregnancy prevention. That's all the sex education I think that ought to be taught in our public schools.
I agree with that also. I don't agree. Well, I really don't agree that any social issues should be taught in our schools. I believe that our schools are there to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic and keep it basic. And I don't know that anybody in this room would disagree with that. These social issues are what divide us. They keep our children confused. They keep us all angry at each other. But your bill, in my opinion, is not needed because these topics would not align with Tennessee standards. And I also have to say that we cancel a lot of things in our society in books. And we were speaking just a few minutes ago about the books that our children might not be able to read. We just canceled Dr. Seuss. So there's a double standard here. But back on topic, I just don't think your bill is necessary because I think we have addressed that in House Bill 1570. Thank you.
Representative Griffey.
I appreciate your concerns and questions.
All right. Last on our list, so we can move, is Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is controversial, and Chairman Griffey, I was looking at the whereas, and and it mentioned. Let me see that again, if you don't mind. It mentioned controversial social issues. The insurrection is a controversial social issue, and students kneeling, controversial social issue. And that's where I got a little concerned about that. But in order to you want to hold this here, it seems to be a little cool breeze blowing. This so. I'll let your members decide that for you.
All right. We are okay. Chairman White.
Yeah, sorry, I had to step out for a meeting. I just want to ask a question. Now, this is not calendar in the Senate. It's not moving the Senate. Is that correct?
Representative Griffey.
It's my understanding that Senator Nicely hadn't had a chance to get it to the Education Committee yet. I have spoken with a number of those members on that committee, and they are generally supportive of this legislation.
Yeah, I think their last committee is today too. So, thank you.
All right, question's been called. The sponsor has requested a roll call vote, so we will honor that. He did that properly. So, Mr. Clerk, will you take the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Representative Sapicki. Dixie. Griffey.
Yes.
Harris. Haston. Hicks of Washington. Manis. McKenzie. Parkinson. Reagan. Rudder. Sparks. Warner. White. Vice Chair Lady Weaver. Chairman Moody. 8 ayes, 7 noes.
Bill passes to calendar, to finance. Thank you. We got 5 minutes. All right. Members, Representative Hakeem, in order to give you the proper time, will you pardon us and may we ask you if we can take you up next week? Thank you for allowing us. What? So the remainder of the bills that we have on our calendar will be rolled to next week. And it shouldn't be too long of a meeting. But in the meantime, we will adjourn today. Well, no opposition to adjourning now? Okay. The next committee may kick us out. But members, we will meet next week, same time, same place. So thank you. We are adjourned.
Are you following?
Didn't have an